Around the camera, all right. All right, hello, so my name is Lauren Rhodes, and right now I am a singer-songwriter, I'm a figure skater, and a content creator. But let's start at the beginning. So the first section is dark days. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I always thought that mental illness was, I've heard of it, but that's for other people, right? It's not for me. That would never happen to me. And I was a very high-achieving child. Like, I got straight A's, I was a competitive gymnast, a dancer, but very much a perfectionist and high-strung. But that's as far as it went. At age 12, I developed symptoms of what I would consider a mental illness. I developed like really severe OCD at around age 12. The first OCD trigger that really took me for a loop was my friend and I were talking about a dance teacher that we didn't like. We were 12. And I was afraid that she, heard under the door and, and wouldn't like me. But it wasn't just that. It was, she heard it, and then I did something bad, and my soul is tainted forever, and I'll die and go to hell. And so the whole summer was replaying, like, behind the door, like, did she hear me? Did she not hear me? If she did, do you get forgiveness when you go back? Because if I didn't get forgiveness, my soul would be, like, forever tainted by this horrible thing that I did. And so that's when the OCD started. In 8th grade, I remember being in dance class, and I'm like, I'm doing dance, this thing I love. Why do I feel so just empty and for no reason? Depression is what started. And I had other OCD stuff that really interfered with my academics. I had this moral scrupulosity OCD. So if I did something morally wrong, it's like this soul contamination that I would die and go to hell for all eternity. And it wasn't even from a religious place. It was just, that's the worst case scenario. And so I'd be in school like, well, what if I cheated? What if I looked? Did I? And trying to recheck it. If I'm, reading my homework and I kind of spaced out on a sentence and didn't read it perfectly, that means I'm lying and I'm a liar. Same thing. If I'm in a store, did I steal something? I'm checking my pockets. And I didn't know it was OCD. I thought it was just a normal thing. I didn't tell anyone. And I think with that is why there were these bouts of depression as well, because it's a lot to deal with. Like, it's so heavy for a 13-year-old. Every little thing they do, they feel like they're going to be punished in hell forever, and they don't even grow up really from a very religious family. So that was that. So I lived like that from about 12 to age 15. And I was still high functioning. I lived like that. Age 15, breaking point. I was a ballet dancer, and I was at this summer intensive where I stayed in the college dorms. And I was not happy with my life, my body. I thought that, if I lost weight and looked perfect, then, I'd feel less anxious. I'd like my life better. So I did that, and that was rough. And I was able to because it was, we stayed in these college dorms. It was between 9th and 10th grade, and you go to the dining halls, come back. And so and it was a dance summer intensive, so I'm dancing about 8+ hours a day. And I decided I'd be healthy, and that'll fix everything. That was rough. I would leave those dining halls hungrier than when I came in. By the end of that 5 weeks, I remember being in dance, and I'm like, I don't think I can make it across the room. But then a combination, and then again, and again. I was just so broken and physically weak and depressed. I was dancing for 8 hours a day, and then I would run or exercise on the treadmill for another 2 hours after that. And I would have to exercise to the point where I was in absolute physical agony, because if I cross that threshold, which is very hard to get to, you have to really be in physical agony, I would get this kind of high that would help me through it. But the amount of physical pain to get there was extraordinary. And I had been doing this since I was a kid to deal with strong emotions. But doing that and not eating properly, crash. So a couple things happened. My immune system tanked. So I got mono, H1N1, and also I know that I had I got this mosquito bite that made my arm red and purple and tingly, and I know there was something in that, although I don't know what. but my immune system was super compromised from all this overexercise, undereating, that the mono and everything hit me really hard. I made it through the first couple months of 10th grade, and then I had to drop out of dance. And I ended up switching to integrated arts in the middle of the year. And it was not just mono. This, within a month of having this, my whole perception of reality was warped and changed and different. I mean, I was having this weird visual snow where things were like a bad television screen. My vision was off. I was seeing auras around things. Sometimes the floor would just go like that. I was super dissociated. I really couldn't process or understand any of my emotions. I almost lost all my higher emotional functioning. It just became good or bad. My brain couldn't process. I couldn't read normally anymore within a month. And because I would read the information and it would just be a jumble of just random information, where I could do that before. My processing really went down. So it's a combination of physical and mental illness, and I think it's really important that we don't separate the two because they're not separate entities. They affect each other so much. So it was so bad, and the OCD just got worse as well. It just got worse. But I grew up, this is family to family, I grew up in a family environment that, to say the least, did not value emotions at all. And so to get through the day, I was just you have no choice. And in addition to all this, I actually had severe ADHD that I did not get diagnosed till my late 20s when I did some more extensive neuropsychiatric testing. And you're like, Lauren, how could you get through school if you have this severe untreated ADHD and all these other illnesses? Well, fear, terror, from the OCD, but also from the perfectionism. And so I was able to get through school because I lived in constant fear and terror. That is why my valedictorian, medal that I got, they gave it to anyone with over a 4.0, really does not give me any pride because I know what it costs to achieve that. And it was not the right way to learn. I had no support. And my mindset, and I feel like my upbringing was, it does not matter how you feel, you do it anyway. And now a little bit of that is good because a little bit of that is called discipline. But that was the whole thing. We don't care how you feel, just do it anyway. How I felt really didn't matter. I mean, they tried to help me, but for example, I did go to a psychiatrist where they do the brain scan, and they wanted to prescribe me antidepressants. Took them for a few days, and my dad's like, well, you need that little pill to get through the day, just making fun of me. So I really had no help, no support, no proper diagnosis, and this mindset of, it doesn't matter how you feel, just do it anyway. So I couldn't read, so I would do bullet points, and it destroyed me, but I got through it and got good grades. And then, of course, the next thing was to go to college. I'll keep track of the time. College. I went to UCI. I got into UCI right. I got into UCI right from high school, which is, it's hard to do. So it was an honor to do that. I kind of switched between biology and psychology, but none of these issues were ever dealt with. So when I was in college, I was self-harming for the first time. I was taking overdoses of some of my medications because I got mental health treatment secretly without telling my parents because I felt especially my dad was just making fun of me for it, didn't believe in it, told me how pointless it was, told me I just need to toughen up. So I just did it secretly. And but I was in bad shape. I was self-harming, taking overdoses of pills that I knew the pills probably wouldn't kill me, but I was hoping that they would at least change my emotional state enough from what I was, just any change at all. And so what happened is I made it through the first year, somehow, and then the second year. And by the way, the mono and stuff that I had, I was never the same after that, to this day. And I'm now 32. Never the same. My brain never fully recovered from it. And whatever other viruses, when your immune system is weakened, everything can come in, and So I've had to adapt for this many years to this permanent change in my brain and change in perception. So in college, self-harming, overdosing, I also would start having these episodes of aphasia, where I could not speak for extended periods of time, often triggered by things like asking me how I felt, because that was obviously a hot button issue because I wasn't allowed to have feelings. So at the end of the second year, I did drop out to pursue treatment for my OCD, because my OCD was super severe. Even the person at my college counselor was like, yeah, this is the most severe case I've ever worked with. And it was wreaking havoc in my life. So I got treatment for OCD at UCLA. And while I was there, because of these aphasic episodes, these disorganized episodes, so aphasic is where you can't speak, and then disorganized for me was where I'm just kind of walking around doing random things, just in a completely like dissociated state. So it's like disorganized behavior. And based on those two things, they actually diagnosed me with schizophrenia as well and put me on an antipsychotic. And that antipsychotic did actually help clear my head. They had put me on an antipsychotic a little bit in college and it helped. But it did help clear my head, I will say. And the OCD treatment did help with the OCD. Although OCD treatment is absolute torture. It is the best we have, but it's not pleasant at all. You do exposures, you face your worst fear. For example, I have no symptoms of AIDS or risk factors. But one of my fears when I was in the OCD program was, well, what if I have a cut on my finger? And then I touch the concrete. And what if my blood has AIDS? And then someone else touches it, and then they get AIDS. And now the whole community now has AIDS, and it's all my fault. All their deaths are on my shoulders. And so you'd think they'd reassure you, like, oh, no, that's so unlikely, don't worry about it. You know what they do? Be like, yes, you might have killed all those people. You have to accept that risk. That might be the outcome. Now accept it and touch it. So it's torture, but it's the best we have, and it works because the reassurance is what reinforces the loop. So I dealt with that, and I just wanted to give you that background. So we're now in my early 20s. Now my early 20s were now, let's get into the acceptance part as we get into this phase of my life. So at this point, I fully accepted that I am struggling with mental illness. It's not for other people, it's for anyone, and I'm the one struggling with it. And so my 20s, I'm going to kind of combine some of the coping skills format in this. I tried to live a normal life despite that. And my plans before were, I was planning to become a doctor because that's, it was kind of, my family's very like doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. Like, you have a few respectable choices and your dreams are not going to happen. Like, you're not going to be a singer, you can do it for fun. You're not going to be a dancer, you can do it for fun. Like, it's very, like, not even open to that option that it could work. And I felt like I was constantly told that to do something practical. So I remember thinking in high school, I'm like, well, I guess I'll be a doctor. I'll just be miserable for the next decade, but that's just the way it has to be. Because I didn't like school, obviously, because it was so hard for me to learn. And so my 20s, with this disability, I really tried to go after my dreams with like my coping skills. So I was in a band in LA, and because I started writing songs at this point, at about 20. And so I was in a band in LA. I did musicals. I actually worked as a peer support specialist for a while. I got NAMI certified. This is like all in the 2010s. And so those were some of the bright points. Oh, sorry, I thought you were raising your hand. Sorry.
Just an itch.
Oh, yeah, no. And then, but some of the dark points were psychiatric hospitalizations. I had some in my 20s. My first one was, I remember that it was after my friend's college graduation. I came home, my parents were not home, and I started feeling like I was being watched. Like, watched and laughed at. I do think part of it was the trigger of, like, I should have been the one graduating and I'm not. That was early 20s. And I just felt like I was being watched and laughed at, and so I called the CAT team, and then they came, and then I had my first psychiatric hospitalization that way. And it was very disturbing, actually. And throughout my 20s, they also kept upping my antipsychotic medication because it stopped working like every couple months. And even recently, I had to like go into a hospital recently, and they had to kind of change and adjust it because it stopped working years ago. So those are some of my positive coping skills. I've always loved performing. It's one of the reasons I do this, because it's kind of like performing. It also helps me process, hopefully helps you. And it just sort of helps me escape for a second. Also probably my ADHD, I enjoy performing. So I thought the hospitalizations in my 20s, I thought that's as bad as it could get. And it was not. What really tipped off the even darker period, late 20s, early 30s, I'm 32 now, was, I'm going to be honest, a really bad group therapy program, who basically told me they misdiagnosed me with a personality disorder and basically told me that all my symptoms are just me wanting attention. Now, working with this psychiatrist, like for 2 years, we have hour sessions actually, which is really rare, only because he works there and I was really severe and then he took me on as a patient. That is now off my chart. It took 2 years to get that off my chart. And let me tell you, if you or a loved one gets diagnosed with a personality disorder, they will not get proper help in any kind of treatment or hospitalization because everything is made up. It's a diagnosis that should not be put out without proper care because it affects the way that you are treated. And it not only affects the way I was treated in the program, but afterwards as well, because it's like Munchausen syndrome, but for psychology, basically. And so for them to just throw out that diagnosis and then treat me accordingly was wrong and severely influenced my mental health in a negative way. I got to the worst lows I've ever gotten to. And it wasn't just me, like I wasn't singled out. I remember someone in that group just talking about, they're just like, yeah, I got sober, I started doing this again, that again, and the therapist was just like, don't expect to be rewarded for things you should already be doing. Like, in that kind of tone, too. And talking about my diagnosis, they're like, well, the way you dress. So I was diagnosed with a personality disorder based on the way I dressed. That's pretty much what they said. They said, well, the way you dress, with a tone like that as well. And because of this personality disorder, which I don't have, like, they would say goodbye to everyone. They purposely ignored me. And even with driving, for example, I cannot drive because I do have a sensory processing disorder. I cannot properly process things around me. And they're just like, well, if you actually wanted to, you could. And that's actually very dangerous with what I have. So after that program, I'm like, well, it's all in my head. It's not real. I'm just going to push through it. So I worked at Nordstrom Rack, was a responsible person, and guess what? Got way, 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 way worse. The next couple years were, no one should ever experience what I experienced those next couple years. No one deserves that, because the amount of hospitalizations, my symptoms were out of control. It was hospitalization after hospitalization. I could barely even leave the house because I would have these like sort of aphagic disorganized episodes where sometimes police would be called. And then they put you in that hospital waiting room, and my behavior was out of control. I actually, in one of those waiting rooms, like climbed up the door. I remember trying to run out and the police people taking me. I was handcuffed from my psychiatrist's appointment to the ER because I went into one of these episodes. One time I kicked a hole in the wall in a psychiatric ward. Yeah, fully. And frankly, it was because of what they were saying to me. Now, this personality disorder diagnosis means people don't really pay great attention to you even in a hospital. But with this diagnosis, they're going to purposely ignore you. And I was just like, why is everybody going to ignore me? Why is no one talking to me? It's like, I just need help to like process what I'm going through. And then and as I'm like freaking out, and then one of the texts is like, that's your job. And then I kicked a hole in the wall. So, so then the police talked to me. And then the other thing that happened with that story is the police talked to me again because I was talking on the phone with my mom, and I'm like, yeah, there was another similar situation where someone said something similar to me. And I said, yes, I handled it really well. I didn't freak out. And then as a euphemism, not for real, I said, oh, I'm going to kill that son of a bitch. So then they had to talk to me again. Obviously, I had no plans to, but obviously I was angry about it. And even at one point in the hospital, I couldn't even have a roommate because I was taking my mattress, ripping it off the bed, and punching it and kicking it against the wall. So I had a lot of anger about the way my parents had always treated me. Like, I don't matter, my feelings don't matter. All we care about is what you can produce and how good you can make us look. I was mad at the system for treating me like nothing. I mean, I remember like on my knees, like, please help me, and the guys like talking about towels, like looking over me, purposely ignoring me. So the invalidation I was trying to escape from my home life then followed me because of these untrue diagnoses. So also during my 20s, I was put on disability for schizoaffective. Now, okay, so we're at 20. I'm just keeping the check at the time. So, so how did I get out of that darkest slump ever? Slowly. Slowly. I realized that I can't get what I need from my parents, and I can't really get what I need from the system. I can get help from it, of course, but I can't get everything that I need. I have to rely on myself, and that realization was heartbreaking and devastating because I didn't feel that I could do it myself, and I felt like the people I had to support on weren't helping me. So it fostered this sense of like sort of hyper independence, which we'll go back to see how healthy that is later. You know, I think there's a healthy form of interdependence that I'm still learning in my life. And so, but I'll go on to like the coping skills and successes, hopes and dreams. I'm like, okay, I have to fix this myself, I have to rely on myself. How can I do that? So one of the things I did was the Rainbow album, which these are like 45 songs I wrote through this darkest period of my life. And they're about a lot of the life lessons and struggles that I've gone through. There's like 45 of them, 9 sections, 5 songs per section. It's a lot of songs. And I also started figure skating. So it started off as roller skating because, like I said, I couldn't really leave my house for very long without going into an episode. But what I could do was get some roller skates on, you know, go to the park, 30 minutes, skate around, and walk right back. I really wasn't stable enough to be able to like be driven and then go and then come back. No. And so that roller skating turned into figure skating because most of my inspo was from figure skating, and so now I figure skate with a coach. I've been with my coach for a little over 2 years. I now have all my single jumps. I do videos on it. I try to do videos every week. And then I also, the Rainbow album, I try to perform these songs every Monday, go through my sections, and also like I'm making videos on them. And my family, I have come to realize that my family can only do what they can do. They're not going to change. There's really no point in going to therapy. I'm not going to wait for them to validate me to live my own life. And so even though I've been told my whole life that like I'm never going to make it this way, the truth is that the world has changed. We are in the digital internet age now. It is not the same age as my parents. It's not like Britney Spears, Madonna, 5 people and the rest don't make it. Success can look different now that the world's changed. And I realize I can't take advice from people who don't actually live in this world. They're living in the past world. So, you know, my parents are good. They do let me do what I want. They give me a lot of freedom, but the emotional support and validation I want, I'm not going to get. And so I'm just accepting that and moving on. So that's what I'm doing with my life right now, and I'm building, and I do feel that I have what it takes to do this. And so one of the things I wanted to do today was sing one of my songs. We're at like 23 minutes. And so this song I want to sing, it's called Ghost. And you'll hear the lyrics. And I actually do a lyric analysis for my songs where I talk through all the lyrics because that's what I wanted and didn't have. And it's about how, like, who would I be if I didn't have this disease? And I was like, okay, I would have just been miserable my whole life. There would have been, I don't know, maybe been some kind of career I didn't want, but I would have been able to do it. What this illness did was made it so it was impossible for me to live a normal life. Now that sounds like a curse, and it is, but in other ways it's a blessing because I would have been miserable, but without the motivation to change it because the fear was so strong. Since I couldn't live a normal life, I had to create it. So I'm just gonna sing it. because I didn't, and I have my lyrics on here. I'm not even going to use this, but it's just a cool thing I do. I have had less fear of speaking my mind because these episodes got so bad that my body was really taking its toll, and I wasn't convinced I was going to be here that much longer. So, about a couple years ago. So, might as well live it. So let me just do that because we're about 25 minutes. Audio. And then I'm going to turn it up. All right. So it's the ghost. This suffering won't end. I can't escape. I know I chose this life. We're not victims, but was this a mistake? Every one of my goals is blocked in some way. I'll suffer any pain just to reach one, to feel worthy. What a failure I am. I'm ashamed of who I am. Show me who I would be without this disease. If I pull back the curtain, you won't like what you see. Who is she? I see her. She's a ghost, never really lives, just does what she's told. There's no purpose to her life. She's done everything right. She's pleased everyone, and she's reached those goals. She feels empty inside. She can change, but she doesn't know she is nobody. A character written by society. There's no chance she'll change. She'll never be okay. This rage at myself, it overwhelms me, but the pain has a purpose to help me love fully. I think I understand. I won't live as a ghost, dead inside without a chance to grow. I am who I choose to be.